The prepared remarks in EA's latest earning calls highlight Battlefield as one of the major upcoming titles in 2021. The specific statement about Battlefield reads as follows: DICE is creating our next Battlefield game with never-before-seen scale. The technical advancements of new consoles are allowing the team to deliver a true next-gen vision of the franchise. We have hands-on playtesting underway internally, and the team's been getting very positive feedback on the game as we've begun to engage our community. The next Battlefield is set to launch in holiday 2021, and we are excited to share a lot more about the game in the spring. Then there's a bunch more data info about what's going on, and towards the end of the statement, they say the growth will be driven by a great slate of new titles, including Battlefield, our blockbuster sports titles, Need for Speed, and titles we've moved out to fiscal 2021. The fact that they're stating Battlefield first among all of those titles is actually a pretty big deal. It means that EA probably has high hopes for this title being one of their top earners. Now, Battlefield has always been on the cutting edge of technology. Even when the first game released, it was offering 64-player matches on giant maps with vehicles and infantry gameplay. They basically blew everything else out of the water. And since then, they've been pushing the envelope massively, especially when it comes to graphics, physics, destruction systems. They always seem to have something going in their game that just really takes them above and beyond whatever else they're competing against. However, given the reception of the most recent Battlefield game, Battlefield 5, DICE definitely has to hit the ball out of the park this time around, which means you can't just give it a graphics bump, you can't just inject some sort of new game mode or gameplay mechanic that mixes things up a little. You really have to take the game to the next level. And that does seem to be what they're indicating in this latest earnings call. DICE is creating our next Battlefield game with never-before-seen scale. Alright, so how can we interpret this statement? I think we can say pretty much with certainty that DICE is increasing the player count. Because if you are going to increase just the map scale, well, then you have a game that feels relatively empty and people are probably not going to like it. So without question, they're increasing the player count. With the player count, they're probably also increasing the map scale so that you can have a good balance of action, not feeling too clustered in certain areas. So I imagine we're going to be seeing both higher player count and larger maps. The question is, how much higher? How much larger? With Battlefield 1942, I do remember that modded servers could have 128 players. It's double 64, which is currently the maximum player count. So that could be a number that they're going for. Maybe they're going for even higher than that. Maybe they're going for lower. Now, they do say never before seen in front of scale, so I believe they mean never before seen in a Battlefield game. If you try and incorporate all games or all first-person shooter style games, well, then you gotta incorporate things like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which has 8x8 kilometer maps. I doubt DICE is going for anything quite that large because it would entail basically redesigning the way the entire game plays from the ground up. So I imagine it's just saying never before seen within the Battlefield franchise. Now, there was an unconfirmed leak by Tom Henderson a while back on Twitter saying that the next Battlefield game was having maps designed around 128 players. So if there is any sort of credibility to that leak, then maybe that's what we're looking at. He also followed up that tweet saying that there was increased interest in Battle Royale due to the success of Warzone. However, they haven't confirmed that a Battle Royale will be in the next Battlefield game yet. Now, granted, I could have made a tweet any point over the past couple years saying that the next Battlefield game was going to have 128 players or an increased player count, and odds are I would have been right. But nonetheless, envisioning the next Battlefield game with 128 players is probably a good place to start for what DICE might have to change in order to make this formula work. Now, as somebody who's spent many hours playing PlanetSide 2, I can tell you that massive scale first-person shooters can be really fun, but they can also have a lot of downsides. It can be really hard to regulate games of massive scale, which means that when things are going great, they look amazing. You're seeing awesome, epic-sized battles, and it's just one of those things where the experience itself feels like it's worth it to play a game of that scale. However, when you're in an incredibly lopsided battle or a bad situation, it's kind of like a bad situation in Battlefield, but Now you just multiply it by 2, or even more than that depending on how many players are in the game. So imagine spawn camping or getting trapped in your base with double the amount of players shooting in at you. It could get really bad. It just means that maps have to be designed with these things in careful consideration. How do you get out of spawn trapping? How well are the team balancers? Are the maps going to be designed in ways that aren't conducive to spawn trapping or lopsided battles? There's a lot of redesign and new theory crafting that has to go into it. You can't just multiply the player count and say, oh, let's double the map size and see what happens. Chances are things won't work exactly as they did before. On top of that, we have the previous Battlefield game to consider, which was severely lacking in things like Team Balancer, had plenty of bugs, had plenty of game balance issues. Multiplying a player count while also having those kind of bugs or problems with the base game is just going to make things even worse. So DICE absolutely has to release a great, well-polished, well-thought-out title, otherwise things are just going to get even worse. And without a question, the developers know this. It's probably one of the main reasons why DICE pulled so many resources from Battlefield 5, as they saw it as a slow sinking ship and decided that the next title just had to be the good one. Now, the other bits of information in this earnings call are not quite as interesting. For example, the technical advancements of the new consoles are allowing the team to deliver a true next-gen vision of the franchise. It just means that the new hardware of the next-gen consoles is allowing the team to go above and beyond what they have been able to in the past. Not really surprising, but it is one of those things where Battlefield games have been hindered by the consoles that they've had to work on. For example, Battlefield 3 on consoles, I believe, had like a 24-player maximum or something like that. So there was a big difference between the console and PC versions, and I'm sure that made it much harder to balance the game and a lot more work. Then they also mentioned that the game is being play tested internally, which means it's at least at a far enough along state where you can play and shoot each other and test out the game modes. And then they say the team's been getting very positive feedback on the game as they've begun to engage their community. So basically it sounds like they're doing playtests with Battlefield veterans to sort of get their take on the game. This is generally a really good thing because there's been very useful feedback, especially early on in the testing phase where the developers still have enough time to change their systems and tweak the game in meaningful ways, as opposed to doing playtesting like a month or two out from launch. There's not a whole lot the devs can do, and most of the systems are already completely locked in. Now, on top of all this, it's been confirmed that the next Battlefield title is coming out holiday season 2021, and that they're going to share a lot more about it next spring. So we're going to get a big info dump, I imagine, then maybe a trailer then. I know everybody wants to speculate about what theme it's going to be, but right now I'm mostly concerned with them just implementing good gameplay systems, ironing out the bugs, and making it a good title. If I had to guess though, I would say modern military is definitely the safest route, and it makes the most sense given how the previous title went over. DICE wants to do something safe and familiar for its fans. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this information. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated if anything new comes out. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future, and I'll see you guys next time. This is LevelCap signing off.